Hey, so communicating politely is important when you are speaking in English. Now, of course, there are rude people and there are times when you may have to be a little bit more direct. However, generally speaking, it's usually in your best interest to communicate politely in English, both personally and professionally. And sometimes people can come across as rude without even realizing it. So today we're going to talk about some of the things that sound rude in English and how you can avoid sounding impolite. First of all, it is important to remember that standards of politeness are different around the world. Every culture and every language has a concept of politeness attached to it, and that goes for English as well. And sometimes English learners can become very focused on the technical parts or the technical aspects of learning a language, like grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation. And while these things are absolutely important, sometimes we can overlook or forget about our tone, and we don't realize how we sound because we're so focused on communicating correctly and accurately that we overlook our tone, and as a result can sometimes sound rude even though that's not our intention. In fact, your tone is actually equally as important as all the technical aspects of English, and here's why. First of all, being polite can help you to establish relationships and build rapport. This is very important because if you're polite, people will feel comfortable communicating with you, and then they will be more likely to build a relationship with you, whether that is socially or professionally. As well, being polite can help you avoid misunderstandings. If someone thinks that you are being rude, they might be offended. They might not want to talk to you, they might not want to work with you, and so on. So instead, polite language will help you to get your message across clearly and the way that you actually intend. Being polite is also considered professional. If you come across as rude or impolite in professional situations, unfortunately, people will view you as an unprofessional person, even if you are not. So politeness is very important for your career and your professional life as well. Being polite is also a social norm, and it's just part of the culture of speaking English. It is expected that you are polite even when you speak to strangers or to new people. So as a result, this will help you sound and communicate more naturally. Now let's look at some specific examples of things that sound and seem rude to native English speakers. First of all, interrupting is rude, even if you use a phrase to interrupt. So if you say something like, "I was not finished," or "excuse me, can I finish?" or no, just listen," in the middle of someone else's sentence, these phrases can come across as rude. They are grammatically correct. They are very direct though. I'm not saying that you should never use phrases like this. When you are in the middle of an argument and you need to be assertive, or you want to sound a little bit more stern or strong or aggressive or direct, then you can use phrases like this, okay? However, if you want to politely interrupt someone, you can say, "Excuse me," or "I'm so sorry to interrupt." Of course, there are times when you do have to interrupt, but you just want to do it politely. Another very simple example is not using polite words like please and thank you. So for example, let's say that you're sitting at the table and you're having lunch with some friends. Instead of "pass me the salt," or "give me the salt," or "hand me the salt," simply use the word please. "Could you pass me the salt, please?" "Could you hand me the salt, please?" This is a more polite and indirect request. "Pass me the salt" or "could you pass me the salt, please?" have the same meaning. One just sounds a little bit rude and one sounds more polite. Another thing that sounds rude in English is when you use condescending language. Now, condescending language is when you make somebody feel like you are above them and they are at a lower level than you. Sometimes people don't realize that they're being condescending or using condescending language. For example, imagine that you're talking to a colleague and you're discussing a concept that is new for them or something that they don't really know much about. It would be condescending to say, "I can't believe you don't know that," or "I thought everybody knew that," or "This is common sense." Instead, you could say, "Sorry, I didn't realize that you didn't know that," or "I can tell you more about that," okay? So again, it's just a matter of choosing the right tone, choosing the right language, choosing the right words to come across as more polite. Asking questions in a very personal or intrusive or nosy way is also pretty rude in English, and I think most other cultures. Now, a lot of times when we're making small talk and getting to know someone, of course we want to ask questions about them, right? But there is a polite way and there is an impolite way. So let's say, for example, a friend of yours is planning a wedding and you're curious about how much things cost. It's not appropriate to ask how much things cost, okay? Of course, you want to know, and I'm sure lots of people would want to know, but it's not appropriate to ask how much was this venue, or to ask someone about how much money they make. These are too personal and generally make people pretty uncomfortable. And asking questions that make people uncomfortable or put them on the spot or put pressure on them is generally rude. Making assumptions or general statements about a whole group of people also comes across as pretty rude. And I've heard statements like this very often, actually. So for example, if you say something like, "Oh, Americans are so loud and obnoxious," okay? And maybe you've met like one American person who is loud and obnoxious. This is a very general and quite rude or offensive statement, okay? Now, this concept applies to any culture, any religion, any group of people, okay? If you want to comment on an observation or something that you noticed about Americans, choose your words carefully. You could say something like, "Americans seem really talkative. Americans seem really outgoing." This is a more positive spin on a general comment or a general statement, okay? You can also use phrases like, "From my experience," or "The Americans that I've met seem very talkative or outgoing," okay? So this shows that you are aware that not everyone is the same, and making these kind of general statements is rude. Negatively commenting on someone's appearance is also rude. I know that sometimes people think they're being honest, or maybe they're even being helpful. However, it generally does sound offensive or rude. So when you tell someone, "Oh, you look so tired today," or "You look like you've gained some weight," these comments are, first of all, unnecessary, and second of all, uncomfortable. I'm sure that the person knows that they look tired. I'm sure that they know that they've gained weight. You don't have to point these things out. And I myself have gotten comments like this from my students sometimes. They say how tired I look, or they ask if I've gained some weight, if they haven't seen me in a while. And I know that they're not bad people. I know they're not rude. I know their intentions are not bad. But these types of comments are unnecessary, and they do come across as rude in English. So if you want to give someone a compliment, that's great. But if someone is looking particularly tired or not looking the best, it's best to just not say anything at all, right? So we have this saying in English, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. And that applies here, okay? It's always nice to give someone a compliment, but if you don't have a compliment, just don't say anything. Apologizing, but not really apologizing, is also pretty rude and annoying in English. So for example, if you say to someone, "I'm sorry, but you shouldn't have done that. I'm sorry, but you shouldn't have said that." Okay, "I'm sorry that you feel that way." This is not a genuine apology. You're saying that you're sorry that they did something wrong or that they made a mistake. So if you're going to apologize, be genuine and just apologize. So instead, you could say, "I'm sorry I made a mistake. I'm sorry I made you feel that way," okay? Instead of, "I'm sorry that you feel like this. I'm sorry that you did this or you're upset." So be careful with this one. And another thing that sounds pretty rude and is also annoying is speaking very loudly when it's not appropriate. Now, this is something that varies from culture to culture, from language to language, from place to place. I've traveled a lot, and in some places, people are a lot more expressive, communicative, they're loud. You can hear them from far away. But generally speaking, depending on where you are, just be aware of the volume that people are speaking at. And this is important when you're learning English because you're going to be speaking with people from different cultures. You're going to be speaking with native English speakers, non-native English speakers. And when you're speaking extremely loudly, it's a little bit uncomfortable and it doesn't fit the situation. So this is also important to be aware of because you can practice the volume of your voice. So in general, just try to match the volume of the people around you. Just pay attention to how everyone else is speaking and try to match their vibe and their volume. And that will make for much more natural communication. So there you have it. These are some things that sound and come across as rude in English, and of course how you can avoid them. Now, why does this matter? Your tone is extremely important. It's an important part of communicating in any language, and it is important for you to be aware of how you sound to other people, of how you come across to other people. Communication is a two-way street. It's not just about you speaking perfectly in English, you not making mistakes, you having great pronunciation. That's not the most important thing. It is important how you communicate. A lot of times, how you say something is actually more important than what you're actually saying. So keep these things in mind. Don't forget to grab your free ebook, English Conversations Made Simple. This will help you with your English conversation skills. It's totally free. Click the link below this lesson. If you enjoyed today's video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. This helps me and it helps the channel to grow and reach other English learners around the world. Thank you for watching, learning, and spending time with me today. I'll see you soon in another one.